Hi everyone, in this video you will look into few types of scientific research. I gather what I normally encounter and what available out there. However, certain books use different types of research, scientific research, and also segregate it or classify it into different terms. But all in all, in general, we can look into this type of scientific research in terms of the group that I will explain later on. All right. There are 5 things that I group it like this. It doesn't mean that if you are doing, for example, if you are doing the primary research, doesn't mean that it is not quantitative or qualitative. I just segregate the scientific research into this group. So it may be overlap with each other, it may be representing the same thing, but then again I just want to explain and elaborate in terms of how does it different, and in terms of the data collection, and in terms of the analysis that you will perform later on. The first one, the primary versus secondary research. What I meant by primary versus secondary research here is the primary research, the primary research will never mind, I did it later. The primary research will use the new data firsthand, so meaning that you are the one who collect the data, and from that you perform the analysis. That is primary research. Secondary research meaning that you use the existing data or resources. So in your master degree later on, there's no standard, there's no rule saying that you have to collect your own data, then only you get your master. Doesn't mean that. In PhD even, it's okay for you to collect your own data and analyze it, or it's okay for you to just use the existing data and you analyze it. Most of the AI research use the existing data or the retrospective data that has been collected before, and then you perform the study in terms of that. So it depends on your nature of research. As I mentioned, some of you are working adult, some of you are full-time student. For those who are full-time student, you have no problem to go to the lab to do the experiment and to collect the data on your own. But some of you are working. Perhaps your industry has the collection of the data that being or the trend of the data that happened for the past 5 years, for the past 5 months. Perhaps you can do analysis in terms of that. So that is the rule of I mean the simplest way to explain the primary versus secondary research. Number 2 is the descriptive versus causal research. Descriptive meaning the research describe the event or the phenomenon, but the causal is you perform the experimental research or explanatory research in order for you to investigate what's going on. If certain variable is changing, what is the effect for the others. And then applied versus fundamental. Applied meaning that you use specific circumstances, and you come up with a solution to solve that circumstances. So normally the applied research being applied in multidisciplinary research, it may not be the new knowledge, the new problem, but then the application has the method has been applied to the other application. Now you apply it to your research. That is called applied research. Fundamental research is the grounded in the scientific method, meaning that the fundamental research addressing the how, why, and what happened, and so on. So it's very fundamental in a way. But the applied research more to like, okay, this is the particular problem, this is the solution that being used by the other parts of the world or the other parts of the problem, and now how is that can be translated into your research. Okay. Whereas quantitative and qualitative, quantitative means that collect the data, use the data to analyze it and come up with a conclusion. Whereas qualitative more to the descriptive, and also you observing what's happened and come up with the conclusion out of that. And deductive versus inductive here. If deductive meanings that if move from the general to very specific knowledge, whereas inductive is you build up you build up the fundamental or understanding of certain things coming from the small thing to become a big thing. All right, we will look into more details in terms of that. Okay, let's go to the primary research. Primary research main goal is to generate new knowledge or insight that never been explored before, and it allow you to tailor the data collection based on the hypothesis that you perform, because you are the one who will perform the data collection. So you are free to do or to vary the variable. So it can come from the questionnaire or interview, and also experiment, observation, field work, the one that involve you as the one who collect the data. So it's up to you to set what is the hypothesis for you to test on. Whereas if you are using performing secondary research, you are using secondary data, meaning that other people already done the data collection based on the hypothesis that they want to study at that time. So the data, although that you get a faster way of getting the data, but then again, you don't have the luxury of changing the variable, changing the control environment, and so on. So you have to use the data that available. Then you can only adjusting the method to analyze it. Also do the data mining and also data interpolation based on whatever that being published before. Some of it, the data coming from academic journals, some of it coming from database, government publication, media, and so on. Some of the research, for example, like you study the trend of heavy rain in Kuala Lumpur, for example. So Met Malaysia has a monthly data of the rain collection, rainfall collection over month, every month. So you have the data that coming from Department of Meteorological, for example, but you don't have the control of whether the data is being collected morning or afternoon, or whether the data is correctly collected or not. You have to rely on that's the data that you get, with the assumption that the technique used to collect the data is constant for every single data, and you can perform multiple analysis out of that. Some people interpret in this way, some other people may interpret in different way. So that is the difference between primary and secondary research. All right, these are the key characteristics. I put it in a table to describe the difference between the causal and also descriptive research. Descriptive research to describe the behavior, the function of certain things, the characteristic, but the causal research want to determine the relationship between variable. What is the cause and effect of that certain variable? And normally descriptive use observation, survey, case study, cross-sectional studies, but the causal normally will involve experiment, because you can vary vary the variable, and also you can set a control variable, and normally used in the longitudinal study, because you want to see the effect after some time. And from if you perform this descriptive analysis, you can do descriptive statistical analysis. But then if you are dealing with the causal research, you need to use the inferential statistic to determine the relationship, meaning that you have to perform the statistical way by comparing before and after, because before and after or between parameter, because you are dealing with the relationship between the causal and the effect of the variables. And in the descriptive, you don't control things, you observe what's happening. But for the for the causal, you have the certain parameter that you can control, and you can manipulate certain variable to see what's the effect between that. So in the causal relationship, when you are dealing with the cause and effect of certain variable, you need a certain environment that is constant, and then you vary certain thing, then only you see the result. If you vary the whole thing, I mean you not control everything, so then you can't conclude whether this variable is causing this behavior. Okay, so that's the difference between descriptive and causal. And applied research, as I mentioned just now, most experimental research, case study, multidiscipline or interdiscipline, interdiscipline and multidiscipline are applied research. And you can understand or solve the problem through empirical observation in order to create a better solution to currently what's available. So the method to solve it is already there, but then the efficiency may not be efficient yet. So you are improving in terms of the process. So normally applied research involved in that. The outcome of it has immediate application. You solve that, it can be practically used to address the problem at that moment. Normally in healthcare, in education, we use this applied research. Whereas in the fundamental research, you conduct it for the sake of knowledge. The primary goal is to expand the scientific understanding of that behavior and not driven by immediate and direct solution. Okay, so the design of fundamental research is more on exploratory, focusing on understanding and also underlying principle. I have a colleague from Faculty of Science. They are scientists, and I'm in the Faculty of Engineering. The engineering thinking and also the scientist thinking. So my colleague from physics department performing a research and invite me to collaborate on something that is very cutting edge and also interesting. But he personally, this prof personally can be satisfied with understanding what happened if certain variable is changed. And although that the direct application for that are not known yet, he can be comfortable with that. But me as an engineer, I even said something like, yeah, okay, we get this result, so what with the result, what is it for, I'm straight away asking that. And the professor was my mentor. Even he laughed and he said that you are very engineer thinking. Engineer thinking always try to find the application right away, how it solve the current problem and so on. But for the scientists and physicists, they are looking into understanding and expanding the scientific knowledge rather than immediate practical application. Now let's look into the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. Normally qualitative sorry, yeah, this is quantitative, this is qualitative. Quantitative normally is deductive approach, meaning that the researcher will test the idea based on test the parameter based on the theory. So it's a big thing deduct into small things. So from if I may draw, it will be like inverted triangle. That's deductive. So from the main theory, main it's very hard to write. Main theory into specific application. Specific application. That is normally how deductive approach and also quantitative being done. It's a bit deductive, and we intend to know what's going on for that specific application based on the general theory that we understand, and that is the goal of quantitative. And then narrow angle lens and testing specific objective, and that's why I said specific. And normally experimental, correlational, survey research are quantitative. Whereas qualitative is the researcher generate new hypotheses and grounded theory from the data collected. So meaning that they collect the data, they observe on what's happening, and then only come up with solution. So due to the nature of observing things that happen without setting any parameters or any boundary, you can come from a bigger thing and then you relate it with the theory. So it become triangle like this. So normally exploration, discovery of phenomena, description is more describing the qualitative research. And the wide angle and the angle lens examining the breadth and depth of the phenomena, and from that only you relate to the specific theory. That's the difference between quantitative and qualitative. Some of your research may involve both. qualitative and quantitative, some only involve quantitative. As I mentioned, for master and even for research, there's no right or wrong. There's no one way of doing it. There's no just one type of research for doing it. So I explain naturally the type of scientific research that is available. It's up to your application later on, to your nature of the field of your research. Okay. Deductive research is actually reasoning and process, where we start with the general theory and test the specific hypothesis. So this is general theory going into very specific conclusion. So as I mentioned, is inverted triangle macam ni. Method application often used in experimental research and longitudinal study, and useful for testing the theory and making prediction. Whereas the inductive research is actually more on exploratory, and also you find reason based on the observation. Okay, so you find you observe, and then you do the pattern analysis, and you see the pattern, and you try to relate that pattern with the theory. Okay, and this is often used in descriptive and exploratory research, and useful for developing new theory based on the observed data. Perhaps not just new theory, perhaps you are determining new relationship, or you are determining new causal factors as well. Okay. All right. That's all for the type of research. I supposed to explain this last week, but then we already short of time, so I record the video, so you can watch it on your own pace, and next week we continue with week 2 lesson. Thank you, everyone.